Under the warm light of my living room, the lavish family portrait hanging above the fireplace suddenly became the center of a horrifying secret. Everything was the same, the smile, the outfit, the angle, except for one thing that made my heart stop. My face, the girl who belonged there, had been completely erased, as white as if it had never existed. No one said a word, no one admitted it. But I knew that silence was the cruelest answer. That night, I carried a mysterious envelope, a silent but fierce weapon, a secret enough to shake the world I once called family. Do you want to know what was hidden inside that envelope? Don't look away, because the story about to be revealed will be unexpected. On Christmas Eve, I saw the family photo in the polished glass frame. My face was completely cut out. No one mentioned it the next day. I handed my parents an envelope and said gently, "Don't open it now." Of course, they opened it. My mother burst into tears. My father turned white. I wish I could say I didn't expect it, that it was a sudden shock like something out of a tragicomedy. But it wasn't. It wasn't a surprise, just the opposite, like the inevitable. I walked into my parents' living room, snow on my shoes, and I tapped it to clean it. I looked up, and there was the picture. It was large, shiny, and neatly framed, sitting proudly on the mantelpiece, the centerpiece of the family story. They were all there. My mother in her familiar red blazer, smiling as if she had never sighed about anything but my sister. My father with his forced smile, the smile reserved for photos and golf course selfies. My sister of course stood in the center, wearing a beige turtleneck that probably cost more than my rent for a month. She posed casually, laughing and joking about some imaginary joke, always nice and accepting, probably saying something witty about her trust fund. But I was absent. I was not lurking in the shadows, nor was I fading into the distance. I was completely absent. It was not a cursory cut. It was a deliberate, subtle erasure, as if someone had erased me from the family story. No trace, just removed. I looked at the picture for 4 or 5 seconds, just long enough for my stomach to tighten. Not long enough for anyone to notice. Or maybe they noticed and chose to ignore it. "Dinner's ready," my mother called from the kitchen, her voice soft and casual, as if nothing were wrong, as if we were the perfect family. I smelled the scent of thyme and lemon from the roast in the kitchen. A familiar, comforting, heady Christmas scent, a scent I used to love when it was warm. I hung my coat by the door, said a quick hello, and walked into the kitchen. My sister was there, of course, swirling her wine glass around, like she was filming a holiday food and wine pairing show. She blew me a kiss, close enough to make a gesture, far enough away to avoid eye contact. "You're here," she said, as if I were late to a carefully planned party, as if this were her house. I didn't respond, just smiled, the smile of someone who had cried into her pillow 3 times in the past month, determined not to tell anyone. Dinner was like a rehearsed play. My father sliced the steak carefully, as if he hoped to be hired for a Christmas commercial. My mother complimented my sister's skin twice. No one asked me how I was doing, where I was, what I was doing. The only question I had was whether I still had my little car, a question they didn't know anything about and assumed I would tell them, so they pretended to care. I didn't respond. I watched my sister open a small gift from my parents. A carefully wrapped present, a vintage gold watch. Not a luxury item, my mother said, which would have been funny if it weren't for the receipt hidden under the paper. Yes, I knew the price. I'd have to work for a week and a half to afford it without eating. "Oh my gosh, this is perfect," my sister exclaimed. "We knew you'd like it." My father smiled as if he'd just sealed a deal. Meanwhile, I received a mug that said, "Favorite daughter," which was probably meant to be sarcastic, or maybe even mean. I left the table after dessert, saying I was tired. Mom suggested I stay in the living room. Not my room, not my old room, just the guest room. It was a basic bed, a dusty bookshelf, a flickering lamp. I closed the door behind me, turned on the flickering light, and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when I took out the envelope I'd hidden in my pocket. Thick, ivory paper, with a raised seal. I had planned to give it to them tomorrow morning, after the presents were opened, the waffles were eaten, after the performance. But standing in the middle of the living room, looking at that photo, seeing my existence erased like a bug in the family algorithm, I changed my mind. They hadn't just forgotten me, they'd erased me as meticulously, strategically as a bad brand. I turned the envelope over in my hands, feeling the weight. That night I lay in bed, letting the house fall silent. The old floorboards creaked, the old clock ticked. In the hallway, my father snored. My mother's voice drifted up, reminding me to bring the nice dishes the next day. My sister sighed, practicing her signature floating breath. The music of the Golden Child played. I close my eyes and think back to the years when I got into my dream college and they said, "We're so proud," and asked if I could take a year off to help my sister build her portfolio. When I called home late on my rent and my dad said the family was struggling while planning a cruise for my sister's birthday. When I brought my boyfriend home and my parents forgot his name at dinner, he never came back. I don't blame him. I'm tired of trying to put myself to sleep, telling myself I'm just being oversensitive, don't be stupid. I stopped making excuses for tomorrow. I handed them the envelope. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't shout. I just smiled and said, "Merry Christmas," and watched the truth do what years of silence couldn't do. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of hot coffee and waffles, listening to my sister talk about the weight of luggage and the stress of traveling. Ironically, she wasn't the one paying for it, she wasn't the one carrying it, she wasn't the one who owned the suitcase or the shoes in it that cost more than my rent for a month. But it was a terrible thing to worry about. I stayed in the living room longer than usual, not because I was tired, but because I didn't want to go back to the sitcom my family put on every holiday. I expected fake laughter, exaggerated optimism, and someone, probably my mother, saying, "Wouldn't it be great to have everyone together like I was there?" As if I hadn't been a shadowy figure in every family memory. When I finally walked into the kitchen, my mother was plating omelets as if preparing for a brunch magazine. My father was sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone. My sister was barefoot, sipping almond milk from a glass of wine. "Good morning," Mom said without looking up. "I hope you sleep well in the living room." "The mattress has personality," I said, pouring coffee. Mom laughed as if I was joking. Breakfast was the same, as every year, as if it were a performance. No one asked me what I was doing, no one cared if I still lived in the small apartment with the creaky stairs, I didn't. My sister talked about her upcoming trip to Barcelona, how lucky she was to have parents who supported her dream. I nodded, sitting like an extra. They haven't noticed the envelope in my jacket pocket yet, the one I'll show them later. I think about the years. When I graduated, with a scholarship that wasn't enough but enough to pay for school with a part-time job. I sat at my desk, asking my parents for some help. My mother looked at me like I was asking to pawn my wedding ring. My father said we were in a financial bind, and he was paying off the bathroom renovation, the one with heated floors and a Bluetooth bathtub. 2 months later, my sister got a new car for 18 years old. White interior, custom stereo, big bow on the hood. She cried when she got the keys, called her parents the best parents in the world. I stood next to the recycling bin with a graduation card with $20 inside that said, "I'm going far away." And I still went to college, worked 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night, ate too many instant noodles, graduated with honors, moved to a new city, started over. I didn't ask for anything more and they didn't help me when I was unemployed 2 years ago, didn't call when I was sick and had to take medicine I couldn't afford, didn't ask when my apartment flooded and ruined everything. I bought a used mattress online and made do. My sister posts Instagrams in fancy Santorini, sponsored by me. I used to wonder if I was unapproachable and inexpressive, so I wasn't loved. Maybe if I joined a sorority, smiled more, dressed more elegantly, played the piano instead of working at a diner, my parents would have noticed me. But then I remember my 8th birthday, when I invited 6 kids, made my own cupcakes. Mom forgot to order pizza, so we had cheesecake and crackers. My sister had a dance recital the next day, and the party ended early. They promised, we'll make it up to you next year, but never did. I also remember the state science competition. The school called to tell me, they texted back, good job, slightly smiling face, and that was it. No dinner, no praise, no certificate. My sister got a party for her small role in a shampoo commercial, with balloons and a cake that said, future star. So, no, it wasn't my fault. The change began early this year. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just going to the land registry to get a certificate of address for work. While there, I found a document in my name relating to a property I didn't recognize. At first I thought it was a mistake because of the same name. But my curiosity persisted. Through small inquiries, online searches, emails and a few phone calls, I discovered many hidden, partly deliberately hidden things. And at the center of it all was me. At that time, I did not get angry, did not confront, just silently observed as usual. But this time I was no longer weak. I had evidence, documents, certificates, proof. The deeper I went, the more strange peace came over me. It was as if I had been living underwater without realizing it, and now I could breathe. They have not forgotten me. They have used me, my name, my legal rights, and most of all, my silence. But not anymore. Now I have something they must acknowledge, something they cannot ignore. That morning, after breakfast, I went upstairs to dress, taking my time, letting them do their usual chorus, gathering under the tree, picking presents, basking in the festive sheen. When I came down, they were halfway through opening their presents. My sister was unpacking the elaborate boxes, feigning surprise as she performed. My mother wore a tear-stained face, saving it for those moments that would make her go on social media to tell a touching story. My father looked at me and asked, "Can you sleep?" I smiled, enough. He nodded and turned back to watch my sister admire the designer bag. I sat down, took the envelope from my coat pocket, and placed it on the table, among the coffee cups and torn wrapping paper. No one noticed. Not yet, but they would. About 10 minutes later, my mother noticed, or rather recognized, something strange on the precious reclaimed wood table. She picked it up carefully, like an alien object or a misaddressed wedding invitation. "What is this?" she asked, seemingly addressing the whole room. I didn't answer right away, just took a sip of coffee, then said, "This is from me." My father looked up and said, "You don't need a gift." I said, "I know. That's all I wanted." My mother sat down and turned the envelope over in her hands. "Should we open it now?" she asked. I shook it gently. "I want to save it." Of course, they opened it. My father looked curiously over her shoulder as she slowly broke the seal. There was only the sound of paper turning and the slight crinkling of paper. I watched my sister fold the strap of her designer bag as if she were a newborn baby. She was holding a new bag named after a French city. Then the silence changed. It was thick. I didn't have to look up, I felt it. A feeling somewhere between awareness and nausea. Like the moment you realize the milk in your coffee has gone sour right after you swallow it. My father blew out a long breath. My mother quickly turned to the second and third pages, as if to escape the truth. My sister looked over and asked, "What's going on?" They didn't answer. She asked again, louder. Still no. That was my sign. "You know," I said, standing up slowly. "Merry Christmas." "What is this?" My mother asked, her voice flat, not angry, not vague, just empty. "Grandpa's will," I said. She blinked. "I saw it. We took care of the estate." "No," I said. "The will you said you didn't have and wouldn't show me." "The full will said Grandpa had left some mementos and cash for the funeral." She blinked repeatedly, as if to escape the truth. "It didn't mention the rented house at Old Briar," I said, "probably because you've already taken the rent from it." My father threw the papers down on the table as if burned. "Where did you get them?" "From public records, land registry, tax returns, archived emails, and a few phone calls, along with a patient lawyer." My sister finally stood up. Where is the rental house? Near the park, I said. Where you took the pictures last year? Yes. She opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Mom found her voice. Honey, this isn't what you think. I laughed. Yes, it's you using my name, my assets, and my legal rights to live while telling me I have nothing left. That's not it, she said quickly. It's complicated. No, the will is clear, I said. The house is mine, in full, transferred. The rent you are collecting is stolen and the repairs are unauthorized. My father rubbed his temples as if he had a headache. You don't understand, he said. You're always making a scene. I laughed. I'm sensational. You erased me from the family photo and committed inheritance fraud. But blame it on my way of speaking. My sister looked at me confused, as if she had just been toppled and hadn't yet fallen to the floor. But the house paid for my school, I said, and the car and the trip to Mexico and a couple of bags. That's not fair, she said. You don't need it. I've always been independent. I don't ask for anything. Because you say there's nothing left to ask for. Mom said in a soft voice, as if she were returning something without a receipt, we didn't think you wanted to take responsibility. You're busy. You've been away for a long time. I'm away because you wouldn't let me stay here, I said. Dad pushed his chair back. You should calm down. And you? I looked at him. Need a lawyer? He stood still. I haven't sued, I said, but I've got the property back. The tenants are notified. The rent is on me. You're not allowed in the house. Mom looked like she was about to cry, but the house is our source of income. I tilted my head, then stopped stealing. She whispered, we are family. No, you are just people I used to have a relationship with. That's a big difference. The older sister crossed her arms. Do you think this makes you better than us? No, I just refuse to be inferior. The silence that followed was not peaceful but so heavy that my ears rang. No one moved or breathed. Father stared at the envelope as if it were on fire. Mother looked lost in thought. Sister seemed unable to comprehend that the light was no longer shining on her. I picked up my coat and was about to leave. Wait, Mom stood up. Can we talk? We already did, I said. Every time you make a decision without asking me, every time you leave me out, every time you say, I understand. My father gritted his teeth. If you go, don't come back. I stopped, looked one last time. Yes, that was the first thing we agreed on. Then I left. The air outside was cold, sharp but fresh. I took a deep breath, remembering that I was still alive, standing, present. I got into the driver's seat, started the car, let the engine hum. I didn't cry, I didn't laugh. I just breathed. Because sometimes the strongest thing is silence, and the loudest scream is walking. 3 weeks later, the first text message came from my mother. Short, polite, but she revised it 5 times and still wasn't sure if it would be accepted. Hi, we've talked it over and think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we talk this week? Best wishes. Love you. No periods, just love you, like a coat hanging on the wrong hook. I didn't reply. 2 days later another message, don't let this ruin things. Your sister is very upset. I'm trying to stay calm, but you know how he is when he's in a daze. Oh, yes, when he's in a daze, not when he's done something wrong. No, it's not his fault. I was silent. Then came my dad's voicemail, which I didn't listen to, just deleted. The last time he called me honey was when I offered to help him open a retirement account and he said, leave money to someone who understands. Like him. Then an email from my sister, you think you've won? Okay, take the house, but don't come crying when you realize money can't buy a family. Then another message. Mom and Dad are stressed, thinking about selling the apartment. That was exactly what I wanted, to see my family fall apart because of the loss of their assets. I read the messages over and over again, not out of pity, but to make sure I understood how the house was the family's financial backbone. Renting 3 houses paid for the mortgage, summer vacations, my sister's school fees, and even beauty upgrades, which my mother insisted were just skin care. When I got my house back, the system collapsed, even though I hadn't asked for my rent back. By spring, people around me were saying my parents were trying to remortgage the apartment. My dad was a consultant, calling old clients for help. My mom was working weekends at the fashion store where she used to shop. Now she was working as a cashier, selling t-shirts to influencers. Her sister moved back home because she couldn't afford the apartment. Her art group disbanded or collapsed, hard to tell. I didn't care. The GoFundMe she started to start over only raised $83, including $2 from my ex. The details made me laugh. I fixed up the house, my house. Dusty and unsightly at first, but solid. I hired a handyman, repainted it, replaced the old windows. I cleared out the furniture my parents had piled up in the house and gave away most of it, save for a navy blue armchair, a reminder of my childhood. The only piece of furniture that didn't come with a string attached. Nice tenants. One left a thank you note after I reduced the rent by $50, saying I was the first landlord to ever treat them well. That meant more than all the crushed apologies from my parents. Strangely, when the noise passed, I realized many things. The silence that was once heavy and personal was now peaceful, like a space for me to relax. I no longer checked my phone every hour, did not wait for a text message, and slept soundly. One afternoon, I received a letter. Not a text message, not an email, but a carefully handwritten letter in my mother's handwriting. I kept the letter for a long time before opening it, not out of any real expectation, but to mark the moment. The envelope smelled faintly of her perfume. Inside were 2 pages of neatly written paper, lines that seemed to say, "We don't know. Didn't mean to. Just wanted the best for everyone." My favorite line, "You were always strong. We didn't realize you needed anyone." That's what people say when your silence works for them and they find a reason why you left. She concluded the letter.